So good morning, everybody. This week is a new week. We could see some big changes in the world here in the next few days. We are all kind of crossing our fingers for our preferred outcome. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about freedom and what that looks like, what it means, and what that means in the context of yoga practice and the goal of yoga and the state of yoga as a way of being, rather than yoga as something we do, yoga as a state of being. And this comes to us, this is the very final sutra of all the Yoga Sutras. This is Yoga Sutra 434. This translation is by Barbara Stoller Miller, and I really liked this one. She says, freedom is a reversal of the evolutionary course of material things, which are empty of meaning for the spirit. It is also the power of consciousness in a state of true identity. Another translation of that same sutra is by Chip Hartranft. Freedom is at hand. When the fundamental qualities of nature, some of you guys might recognize that as an allusion to the gunas, or the way things that change, or the forms of this world. So freedom is at hand when the fundamental qualities of nature are recognized as irrelevant to pure awareness. It stands alone in its very nature, the power of pure seeing. And I think that is a great way to describe this state of yoga, or being in a state of yoga, is that tapping into the power of pure perception. So this is perception that is not clouded by our individual identities, a way of interacting with and understanding the world purely, that is not at all affected by our opinions or our choices or the ways that we identify as individual beings. This is perception in its broader, more perfect, untainted context of seeing things exactly as they are with no distortions. And those distortions that I'm referring to might be what we call the vrittis, or the whirlpool motion of the mind, the whirlpool motion of our emotions, the ever-changing, cyclical, changing forms of this world, or the gunas. And so I thought what we would do today is kind of explore the gunas a little bit. These are three ways that everything in the world is subject to these qualities. And the first quality is tamas, which is the quality of inertia, slowness, thickness. So it's slow to change. It is. It sounds like it's negative, like it's slothful, and it can be that. But tamas is also the quality that we need to find stillness. It's a quality that we need to embody to get deep rest when we sleep at night, or to take a break from something. So it's a balancing force. And then the second quality is rajas. Rajas is fast moving, it's dynamic, it's quick to change, it's energetic, it's talkative. Can you tell which one of these feels more natural to me? And it too it's neither good nor bad. Sometimes being overly excited and overly energetic is not good, because we get distracted, or we're not focused. We're moving so quickly that things are sloppy, right? So those are some of the negative qualities of rajas. But the positive qualities of rajas are that inspiring, instant of change, the impetus for dynamism and growth and change, inspiration and energy to get things done. And so these two forces are kind of opposing one another, or opposite of one another. And the third force that is part of this guna trio is sattva, which is the balance of these other two opposing forces. And so we're always aiming, in some ways, for that state of yoga that is sattvic, or balanced, or harmonious. But often, in order to get to that sattvic place, if we're too registic, we need a little bit of tamasic energy to bring us into sattva. If we're too sluggish and slow, we need a little bit of that active energy of rajas to bring us into balance. So that third quality is really sort of that balance or combination of the other two. So what I thought we would do is kind of move through some exercises and things that we can do with some of these qualities in mind. And I'd like to invite you to notice just kind of where you are this morning, what kinds of qualities you're already expressing in this moment, or kind of where your mood or your mental state is in this moment. And then we'll try to find throughout our practice today ways of bringing us closer and closer to that harmonious sattvic balance. So we'll begin in our seated pose, as we often do, a Sukhasana, an easy seat. And ideally, we're just going to find some stillness to begin. I might also note before you settle into your stillness, if you have a set of blocks or some other kind of prop similar to a block that would help you with standing balance poses, you might want to have those close by. So other than that, we're just going to kind of come into that stillness. And let's already begin by balancing out some of these qualities. So we want to feel sort of that heaviness or that stillness, that stability and inertia, an unchanging, stable base of support in the low body. But we want to feel, ideally, our breath flowing in the upper body, in the belly and in the chest and in the ribs. We want to feel the movements of our heart beating, squeezing and releasing, moving blood throughout the body, including in that stillness place in the bottom of the body. And so we're alive and alert and dynamic and awake in the upper body. We're slow and still and grounded and stable in the lower body. And when we bring those forces into balance, we come into a sattvic stillness. And to begin to bring a little bit of movement to this, we're going to first embody that tamasic energy, that slow motion, slow to change kind of energy. So we're going to start by bringing the heart very slowly forward. This will probably not match our breath unless we're breathing very slowly. And then just start to shift the heart in a really big circle, imagining kind of when you're sitting upright, your spine nice and tall. Just kind of imagine your heart kind of rotating slow motion around that central point. So ideally the hips and shoulders, maybe even the head and neck are involved in this slow round motion. So we're kind of getting cat-cow and lateral movement in the spine. And after a few more rounds in this direction of this circular sort of Sufi grind motion, at some point just take a little pause and reverse your direction, still moving nice and slow, letting your heart sort of orbit around that center line. And because we're moving really slowly, we can really be aware, we can use that alertness that we brought into the body and the mind to take note of how things are moving, which parts of us are feeling sensation. After a few more circles in this direction, we'll pause again and find that stillness, coming into sort of that more ultimate sattvic place, balancing. Maybe our breath has picked up, maybe the heart's beating just a little bit faster. And then we're going to embody that more Rajasic energy, that higher energy, fast moving, lots of change, by first of all quickening the pace of the breath. So start to inhale and exhale a little bit faster. Don't hyperventilate yourself, but kind of get a little bit more energetic in your breath. And with each inhale, heart is forward, each exhale, it's coming back. So we're finding cat-cow here. And we might get a sense of sort of a bellows action here as we quicken the breath and move quickly back and forth between cat and cow. See how extreme you can get in your forward and back motion. Then pause again. Notice any lightheadedness, any more energy that's moving or heat building in the body as part of that Rajasic energy. And then we'll try to embody, even through motion, some of that sattvic balance between the two. So we're gonna take a side-to-side stretching to continue warming up the body, but we're gonna do this in a way that allows us to be both slow and fast at the same time if we can. Ideally, this will feel balanced. We'll see how it turns out. So let's bring the left hand down to the floor next to us. We might have to lean a little bit to get into that space. And just kind of press your left hand into the floor to start to open this right side body a little bit. And then with this right arm, we're gonna move with our breath. So we're still in our format here, but we're gonna use motion in this right arm. So as you inhale, reach up and over. As you exhale, come back down. And this can be as fast or slow as feels good. Feel both the dynamism and the constant motion of that right arm and hand, and the steadiness and stillness of the left side body. We might, as we press into that left hand, feel a little bit more solidness in the crunch of the left side ribs. Let's do 2 more of these breaths. And then come back to center, take a breath or so to neutralize. Feel kind of the letting go of stillness on that left side body and maybe some of that heat and energy moving through that right side. Then let's find the other side. So right hand comes down, press into the floor, find a steadiness in the low body and also in the shape of the torso. And again, inhale, left arm up and over, exhale to come back down to the left. So what does all this have to do with freedom? This is where we can come into a place where our mind and our alertness and our attention is steady no matter what state the rest of us is in, whether we're in that stillness and sluggishness or restfulness, or whether we're in that energy and high change flow. We want to be able to flow with all of these things and be free to make every choice and to be aware and stay aware no matter what the conditional format of our life is. Let's maybe take another breath here and then again coming back to neutral. Take a breath or so to stillness again. Come back into that really alert state of being, that really steadiness in the low body, and maybe the heart and breath are still kind of active in the upper body. Then we're gonna start to come into all fours and a little like flat tabletop shape. And so on hands and knees, get really neutral and stable in both your hands, maybe spreading the fingers really wide, maybe the toes are tucked under, maybe the tops of the feet are flat on the floor, but kind of play a little bit with the tilt of the hips and the pressure into the hands to flatten out the spine as much as you can here. So this is sort of our neutral, our stabilizing that we're gonna try to do. So this is a little bit tamasic, we're still. We can also alternatively, rather than finding tabletop, come into a plank pose by tucking the toes and kind of pressing into that push-up or plank position. So we're gonna move back and forth between table or plank, and also a child's pose, and also like a cobra or an upward facing dog. So from our neutral table or from our neutral plank position, let's rise up into a downward facing dog. So this is kind of sattvic because we have the head and neck are passive and soft and slow and sluggish, but the arms and legs are really active and strong in pushing us up. So in our sattvic neutral downward facing dog, we're gonna come back into either plank or table. This is our stabilizing, our stillness, our tamasic energy. Then using that power of dynamism, let's move down onto the belly. The chin can rest on the mat, or maybe the cheek turns down one side. Palms are still spread wide underneath the shoulders. On an inhale, lift your heart and your chin, pull your shoulders back. On your exhales, dip back down. Inhale, back bend. Exhale, neutralized. So you can see this has more of that registic energy. We're almost in constant motion here. Take one more, and as you come back down to flat on the belly, we're gonna come back into either our plank or our tabletop, and you can mix and match between those two as we continue to practice.
Let's drive ourselves back up into that downward facing dog, kind of getting a nice big stretch in the backs of the legs. Our sattvic balance of energy and passiveness. And from here, we're gonna lower the knees all the way to the mat and arch cat-wise through the spine. So the back of the heart is lifting, chin is tucking, and then shift the hips back toward the heels. They don't have to touch. So we might be in this sort of melting heart pose, or we can sink all the way down into child's pose. So whichever is more comfortable for your body. And once we're in one of those two shapes, see how soft you can become. If your hips are still high, you might have to stay a little bit active, but if you're all the way in child's pose, just kind of soften completely.
So this is sort of that lack of energy quality that tamasic has, that sort of passiveness, the inactive way of being. We're stable because we're low to the floor.
Take one more really big breath in and out. Then inhale back to table or plank, your choice.
So we're in that stabilizing place. It has the stable qualities of tamas and the active qualities of rajas. Shifting from here into downward facing dog. Same thing, we have some of those active qualities and some of the stable qualities. Let's come all the way to the belly on the mat, lowering our body down. Palms are still spread wide under the shoulders. Let's move up and down in our back bend. So this could look like up dog, it could look like sphinx, it could look like cobra. Inhaling to lift the heart and the chin away from the floor, exhaling to lower back down. So we can feel sort of that engagement of the abdominals and the low back as we lift, and the relaxation of those active muscles as we release back to the floor. Maybe take 2 more rounds and then pause flat on the belly. Tucking the toes, moving back into downward facing dog. Stretch out the backs of the legs a little bit more so we're still kind of warming up. And then dropping the knees into table, finding a nice big cat arch and an expansion in the back of the heart by actively pressing into the hands and allowing the chin to drop passively towards the chest. Sink your hips back towards your heels, finding either that melting heart puppy pose or that child's pose, and then soften as much as you can. So letting go of any active qualities, relaxing the hands as much as you can, relaxing the breath as much as you can. Feeling out these ever-changing qualities. We're always moving between sort of tired and energetic, or between passive and really engaged. So these are the conditions of the gunas that we are always moving through. Everything in the world exists under these laws of constant change. The idea to come into that state of yoga, to come into full liberation or freedom, is to maintain the same you or the same perspective regardless of the changing conditions. So let's rise back up from child's pose into table and then downward facing dog. And now we're going to start to play within this balance, this sattvic balance of active in the arms and legs, passive in the head. We have this sort of sattvic balance. Let's become a little bit more ragistic and active by raising or lifting that right leg. On your exhales, let's pull the right knee under and towards the chin. Maybe the chin tucks a little bit more. Inhale and lift. Exhale and coil. Take a couple of these. As fast or slow as feels good to your body. One more, we're gonna land in that 3-limb with the right leg lifted. And we're gonna try to bend a little into that left knee. We're gonna let the right foot come over to the left side of the mat and kind of roll open. This sometimes could be like a wild thing. It might be more like a fallen triangle pose. Take a couple of breaths, feel how active you are, pressing yourself up even though you're still good. And bring your right foot and right hand back into regular downward facing dog.
And relax down, knees to the floor, neutral table, then cat arch through the spine, drop into child's pose for about 3 to 5 breaths. So we were really active, we built some heat, now let's pause and take a rest. So again, this active energy is neither good nor bad, Rajas, and this passive inertial energy is neither good nor bad, but coming into a balance of both of these things helps us to find a sattvic overall lifestyle. Let's find those same poses on the other side. So rising back into table, tucking the toes, coming back into downward facing dog. Find your stability. Notice which parts of you, maybe arms and legs, that are active. Notice which parts of you are a little bit more passive and heavy, like the head. Then inhale to lift your left leg high, 3-limb downward facing dog. On your next several exhales, coil that left knee in towards the chin, tuck the chin a little bit more actively. Inhale, lift up, exhale, coil. Couple more of these. We'll end with that left leg lifted in 3-limb downward facing dog, maybe bending at that left knee, and maybe just allowing the left foot to come over to the right. Maybe it comes all the way to the floor, and we find that little fallen triangle or like a wild thing kind of pose. Feel how active your right arm is, even though we're trying to find stability and stableness here and stillness. On an exhale, let's come back into regular downward facing dog. Take about 2 breaths here. Exhale, knees are gonna drop to the mat. Inhale into your back body, cat pose. Exhale, find child's pose, soften. Come back into that tamasic energy that allows us to rest and restore. That brings us into balance. Another breath or so here, and we'll find our way back into our neutral tabletop. So hands and knees, spreading the fingers, opening up that base of support, neutralizing the length of the spine, elongating and flattening. Small amount of engagement here in our core as we do this. And let's move through some what we call sunbird stretches. So on an inhale, right leg is gonna lift back behind you, toes can point or kind of flex. And then balancing your weight between your left knee and your right hand, if you're stable, lift out that left hand. That part is optional. And just hold. So again, we're finding stillness and stability, tamas, but we're also really engaged, especially through the core here. Now let's find some movement. Exhale, elbow and knee come under the body, cat arch, chin tucks. Inhale, extend, flatten, and reach long. One more. And then come back into our neutral table, kind of reset your body. Extend your right leg back behind you. This time toes are on the floor underneath your foot. Drop your right heel towards the center of the mat. Roll that right arm open. We've got our heart shifting. You can choose to lift your right leg if you want. So think to yourself, what will bring me more into a sattvic balance? More engagement or more stability? More action or more pause? So find your sattvic balance. Then as we exhale here, we're gonna bring the right hand back to its original spot and kind of draw that right leg out to the side, to the right side of your mat. We're gonna reach the right arm underneath the body into the left and just kind of bend at the left elbow. Maybe your shoulder comes all the way down to the mat, maybe it doesn't. Maybe you have to shift a little bit. But open your heart as much as you can to the left. Feel that inner right thigh stretching and opening. One more full cycle of breath. And then we'll come back into our neutral table. So drawing the right knee back under the body, kind of checking in with that long neutral spine, the level of engagement in our core. And let's find that same series on the left side now. So left leg is reaching up and back behind you. Toes can point and flex. You might even rotate around the ankle a little bit. If you're stable here, reach the right arm forward, pause. Feel both the stability and stillness happening and also that intense level of activity and engagement. Exhale, elbow and knee come under, back of the heart lifts, chin actively tucks. Inhale, stretch long. Exhale, coil. Take a couple more. Coming back to neutral table, letting the left toes come behind the body down onto the mat, dropping the left heel towards the center, balancing on right hand and right knee. Roll the left arm up towards the sky, open your heart to the left. Maybe that left leg rises, kind of like a little half moon shape. Maybe it stays on the floor. Again, your job here is to be as aware as you can of what's going to bring you into balance. More energy or more stillness? More motion or more stability? Good. As we bring the left hand back down to its original place on the mat, we're going to swing that left leg out to the left side of the mat. And then left arm's going to reach again under and to the right. Maybe we stay upright. Maybe we bend at the elbow to drop that left shoulder down towards the floor. See if you can find a balance between activity and stability, between being engaged and being relaxed in this shape. It's an awkward one. So again, we're practicing being in our same stable perspective no matter what our changing conditions are. One more breath, and then we'll come back to our neutral tabletop. Back to hands and knees. Finding that elongated spine. Let's tuck both sets of toes underneath the body and arrive back in downward facing dog. That sattvic balance of heavy tamasic head and active, engaged legs and arms. Let both your feet come up towards the top of the mat, finding a forward fold here. While you're bent, maybe bringing your blocks toward the top of the mat if you're using them today. And then stay engaged through the legs. Grip the mat with your toes. Be active and stable at the same time in your legs. And then be soft and floppy and kind of relaxed and lazy in the upper body. Just kind of shake everything out. Feel the stability in your legs and the sort of fluidness of the upper body. Coming into a more fully active state or a more registic state, inhale and find a flat back. Continue to lengthen. Maybe we use blocks here, or maybe hands are kind of pressing into the shins or thighs. See if you can find that same kind of neutral flat back in your spine. Exhale and come back into that passive state. Ideally, the legs do not change as we move back and forth between active and passive. So just notice the state of your legs. Keep a little bit of softness in the back of your knees. Inhale, come back into that active half lift. Exhale, soften into your forward fold. Notice any change that happens in your legs and see if you can stabilize. We're going to do this one more time. So keeping your legs active, feet gripping, stable and very still and rigid in the legs, soft and floppy in the upper body right now. Then inhale again, find the whole body active now in this little right angle L shape. Arms might choose to come with as we lift even higher from this shape, rising all the way up to Tadasana, a standing pose, and then just relax your arms down by your side. Feel that very active,
engagement in your core, a lift in your ribs and your crown. Or maybe the arms are even kind of stiff and straight, pulling the fingertips down towards the floor. And then soften the legs, soften the arms, just kind of wobble around, find a looseness. See if you can avoid stillness for the next 3 breaths and just kind of find a fluid motion of registic energy. Wonderful. Coming back into a more sattvic balance now where we're stable but also kind of loose. We're going to shift our weight into the left leg. Right toes might just hover a little ways off the mat, or we might lift the knee high or extend the right leg long. But just take a couple of breaths balancing on that left leg. And then we're going to step towards the back of the mat with that right foot. Once your foot touches down, adjust your stance so you feel really stable in the lower body. Both legs can be straight. Let's shift hips, heart, and gaze straight ahead in our shape. We have a little pyramid shape here. We're going to start to lift and open the heart. And we might do this with arms raised. We might do this with hands at hips or pressing into the low back. We could also kind of interlace fingers. So finding that lift in the heart. And then exhale into your left knee. So this is some variation of Warrior One. You could, if you wanted to, if you need more motion to bring you into sattvic balance, you could raise and lower your arms with your breath. You could find more stability by pressing into the low back and stabilizing. So again, find your balance of what's going to bring you into that sattvic, harmonious balance between stability and change. Wherever you are, take a little pause here. And straighten both of your legs again. We're still facing forward. Now let's shift our right toes, our heart, and our shoulders over to that right side of the mat. So right toes are now facing that long edge. Inhale, bring your arms out wide at shoulder height. Exhale again, back into the left knee and gaze just over the left hand. So maybe here you need some stability. Maybe here you need some shift and want to just move through the upper body and letting the low body be still and stable. So again, finding what's going to bring you into balance in this moment. About 3 more breaths. If you are using your blocks, you might straighten that left leg. And then your left hand can come either down to your thigh, your shin, or one of your blocks to find a brief triangle pose. We're just going to take about 3 breaths here. Then both hands are going to come back down either to blocks or maybe to that shin, maybe to the floor, depending on your body. We're going to bend into that left knee and then start to lift the right leg off the mat. So our heart and hips are starting to face forward again. Once we're in this sort of a Warrior 3 variation, see if you can kind of level out your hips. Perhaps your hands stay in a supportive place like blocks or floor. Perhaps one or both arms rise. So those are some options you can take. If you need more activity here, you can stretch out the left arm in front of you, right leg behind you, and as you exhale, take those little coils that we were doing. So we're going to hold or move through this shape for another 3 breaths or so. And then lower that right leg back into its place at the top of the mat. Inhale, find a fully active body. Grip the mat with your toes and actively engage your spine and your core. 2 breaths here. On that second exhale, relax just the upper body to find that kind of floppy, soft, movable shape. Stability in the legs and feet. Inhale, find your flat back. Hands can support or reach in front of you. Blocks, shins, or reach out. Take a couple of breaths. Be active in the whole body now. Almost rigid.
Exhale, soften back into the upper body, letting the legs and feet stay stable. Maybe even find a little movement or shaking out of the upper body. Take advantage of that motion and that softness. Inhale, flat back, full body active, supporting yourself however you need to. Hands at shins, on blocks, or reaching forward. One more breath in here. Exhale, soften into your fold. One more time. Stable in the legs and feet. Loose and dynamic in the upper body. Last half lift here, coming back into that full body right angle L shape in your body. As we lift back to standing, arms might be active in that process, maybe not. Once we come to standing, be really actively engaged. Fingers are stiff, arms are actively reaching down, whole body engaged again. And then soften. Shake everything out. Find a fluid motion for the next 3 or 4 breaths. See if you can not be still at all. Then find a balance between that rigidness and that fluidness by being stable, but also loose, relaxed. Then shift your weight into your right foot. Left toes might hover, left knee might rise, left leg might straighten in front. Take a few breaths in your balancing shape. And again, with the left leg, step towards the back of the mat. Find your stability. Let your heart, your gaze, and your hips kind of face that forward area. And again, we're going to start to lift the heart and the chin. So we have a little bit of a back bend. Arms might be rising. They might be at hips, pressed into the low back, interlaced, lots of options. So choose, and then exhale into the right knee this time, a version of warrior 1. A little bit of a back bend in there. Maybe we find that dynamic motion with the arms as we inhale and exhale. Maybe we're working more on stability to bring us into sattva. Just kind of observe the self, stay in that witnessing consciousness that doesn't judge whether we need stability or movement, but simply has the goal of finding balance. That's how we stay stable in our changing conditions. We'll again start to straighten on an inhale that right leg. We're going to shift our heart, our shoulders, our gaze, and our left toes now towards the left side of the mat. Inhaling, arms out to shoulder height. Looking over that right hand and exhaling back into the right knee, finding warrior 2. Now again, maybe we're stable here because that's what we need to find balance. Maybe we're in motion here because that's what we need to find balance. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe a couple breaths in motion and a couple in stillness to find sattva. About 3 more breaths, either in motion or in stillness. Then again, we'll begin to straighten the right leg again. Maybe we use block or shin or floor as we come briefly for a few rounds of breath into triangle pose. Then both hands will either come to the floor or to the shin or to your blocks. We're kind of twisting the body back to facing forward again. And we'll bend into the right knee and then start to lift that left leg off the floor. So first making sure that the hips are relatively level. Maybe we find a little engagement in that core center. Maybe hands are supporting. Maybe one is lifted. Maybe both are lifted. Couple of breaths here in warrior 3. If you need a little bit more motion, maybe take those little right arm and left leg crunches under the body with your breath. One more breath. Then allow your left foot to come next to the right again. Inhale, find that active L shape in the body. legs are almost rigid with strength and stability, as is the core and the torso. Take one more breath in here to lengthen. Exhale, soften into your more relaxed fold, maybe even shaking out the looseness in that upper body, even as the legs remain still and stable. From here, we're going to bend at the knees to bring the palms back to the floor, and then stepping back with both feet to downward facing dog. Find your sattvic balance of activity in the arms and legs, as well as a soft looseness and heaviness in the head. On your next exhale, allow your knees to come down to the floor, back in tabletop. Take a big cat arch in the spine. And on an exhale, find child's pose or that little melting heart pose. Take some time here to soften as completely as you can. Reminding ourselves that time spent in stillness and contemplation or assessment is never wasted. Sometimes we get really busy and we kind of feel like rest is a waste of time, or we don't have time to rest, and the actual truth is we don't have time not to rest. The world is demanding quite a lot of all of us in this time and in this era that we're in, and it's very important to balance that registic energy of go, 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 accomplish, do it, get it done, with stillness and time for reflection. Let's rise from child's pose back into table. Let's come back into downward facing dog. Once we're in down dog, feel free to maybe lift one leg and then the other. We're going to take about 6 breaths here, so feel free to find stability or motion. Again, ask yourself, what do I need to find balance? Is it more energy or more passive stability? Kind of work that out for yourself for another breath or so. On an exhale, find your table. On an inhale, lift the back of the heart, drop the chin or pull the chin in towards the heart. Exhale, find child's pose. How soft can you get, and can you train yourself to go from that sort of active pushing up or active motion of maybe that movement in down dog into a fully relaxed, passive stillness in child's pose? We're going to move through these same 3 poses one more time, and I'd like for us to notice if we are able to maintain a similar point of view or a stable perspective as we move through the active and passive, or the still and in motion portions of these poses. So let's rise again, back to table, back to down dog. Once we're in down dog, choosing motion or stability depending on what you need to bring you into balance. On an exhale, find table. On an inhale, lift the arch of the spine, chin tucking in towards the chest, and then again, softening into that completely passive child's pose. So we found some optional motion in some of our poses that are usually static. Down dog is normally just you're in that pose and that's all you're doing. But we have, again, the option to move within it to make it more dynamic or make it more active. Even child's pose, which is typically like a resting pose or a relaxed state of being, we have some of those options. So let's lift the head off the mat just a tiny bit. Reach your arms, like actively walk your fingers toward the top of your mat to lengthen both your arms and the sides of your torso. Then let's walk back and forth from side to side of the mat. So opening left side body, opening right side body, just kind of slowly and way, not too fast, not too slow. Walk your upper body from side to side. And this kind of allows us, or kind of embodies the idea of staying really alert and aware to all of our surroundings, being fully present, coming into that consciousness that is not limited by our opinions or our temporary states of being, but is always alert, always aware, that pure awareness. Balance yourself out from side to side and then come back to the center. Actively reaching forward, bringing the fingertips ever closer to the top of the mat. And then let's plant the hands here, and let's bring our body back into kind of a tabletop, but the arms are a little bit more forward. Gently, maybe just drop the hips, so we're coming into kind of an open shape. Maybe we bend at the elbows, sort of an up dog or a cobra or a sphinx-like shape. Couple of breaths. Then walk your hands back to come back to neutral table. Maybe take a few cat-cows or some barrel rolling. And then we're going to shift the knees to one side so we can come onto the sitting bones again, swinging the legs out in front of the body. If you have blocks or some support that you were using, you might set those to the side of your mat. They may be useful in our next pose. So once we're stable, maybe hands can come to knees. Let's take a few cat-cows here. So on your, let's try to reverse this a little bit so we have to stay mentally active. As we inhale, let's open the back body, chin to chest. Maybe the knees come closer together. As we exhale, open the knees, shoulders shift back, heart and chin shift forward and upward. Inhale, cat shape. Exhale, cow shape. Next time you inhale into that cat shape, pause there, just kind of hold the shape, but let your breath flow. Hands can release from the knees and come outside the body, behind the body a little bit. We can just support ourselves as we slowly lower down to the spine. So sacrum, shoulders, back of the head are now on the mat. And to the side, if you set aside a prop here, just kind of feel for it with your hand for where that is so that we don't have to turn our heads. We're going to take a little bit of a cat-cow in the pelvis real quick. So press into your feet, lift your pelvis just a couple of inches off the floor, and just point the tailbone down and then up. So just feel that cat-cow motion in your pelvis. And then drop your pelvis back to the floor. Maybe let the knees fall side to side for a moment. And we're going to take a bridge pose for an extended period of time. So if you want to be really active, if you need that activity and engagement to be balanced, maybe just hold that shape. If you would like a little bit more passive benefit to this pose, maybe use your block or some other support to take a supported bridge pose. But press into the feet, lift your sacrum. If you're using support, go ahead and bring that under the body. If you're just holding, maybe play a little bit with the tilt of your pelvis. And just see how stable you can become. See where there might be room for flexibility, like maybe where the arms are placed. How active are your feet? If you're using support, how passive can you become? How much trust can you place in that support to hold your body in place? So depending on what type of bridge pose you're taking here, try to find your way into that sattvic balance. Not just in terms of this pose, but also in terms of the whole practice. Have you been more active or more passive? What will bring you into balance? Last breath or two. If you're using support, feel free to rise and pull that out of the way. If you're not using support, just start to bring yourself back down toward the mat. Once you're down on the mat, we're going to take a little cannonball shape. So drawing the knees in towards the chest. Maybe the sacrum lifts a little away from the floor. Maybe hands are in front of the knees to kind of pull in towards the chest. Again, do you need an active cannonball here or something more passive? Then we'll just take a few breaths in a supine twist to either side. So bringing your arms into a place that suits you, whether that's a V or a W or a T shape in your arms. And then just find your way to each side for about 5 or so, give or take, breaths in your supine twisting. Maybe this is something that needs to be more active, where your knees are not quite on the mat or on the floor. Maybe they're soft into the mat. So again, kind of finding your way to that sattvic balance that is unique to you. When the time comes to switch sides, roll your knees back to center on an exhale. Maybe take a little neutralizing or reset your shoulders or arms, and then find your twist on the other side, whether it's active or passive. Taking the twist shape that will most bring your overall practice into balance. When the time comes to come back to center, pull your knees back to center on an exhale so that your core is engaged. Then notice if there are any other motions that your body might need. Maybe you need to coil back into that little cannonball or a happy baby. Maybe you need to take a couple of breaths in a plow or a half shoulder stand. Maybe you're just ready to come into stillness. Maybe you're extending your arms and legs and taking a moon bend to either side. Once you've addressed all the needs of the body or the requests of your body, start to settle into stillness. See if you can take the same attitude in your Shavasana or whatever rest pose you're taking as we took in that first seated posture. So we want to feel some stability. Maybe it's your back body that is stable and still and heavy and into the floor in that tamasic way. Maybe the front body is more of that registic energy, moving with your breath, feeling your heartbeat, being alert and active in your attention and in your mind. Find the freedom where we're not locked into any one way of being, but that we can maintain our true self, our true identity, no matter what our changing or temporary conditions might be. The mantra that you will hear as we move into our resting pose today is about meditating on the threefold reality that is everywhere, that permeates everything, and that we are bestowed with freedom or with liberation from death. Just as a cucumber is severed from the vine, it's bondage from the vine, that we want to be that, we're asking for that liberation. We're asking to meditate our attention on that threefold reality so that we can rise above it, or that our consciousness can transcend those conditions. Deepen your breath and then soften as much as you can.
From a place of pure awareness, undiluted by opinions or individuality, can you feel simultaneously that stillness, heaviness, and steadiness in your body? Simultaneously, can you still feel that activity of your heart and your breath and the alertness and awareness of your mind? The simultaneous nature of tamas and rajas in the body, bringing you into a sattvic balance. Can you feel both your wholeness and your connection to all things, as well as your individual quirks, the things that we think make us who we are? Can you feel both your individual nature and your wholeness nature at the same time? This is the state of yoga, that pure awareness. Starting to draw our stillness from that tamasic energy more into registic energy. Move slowly and with a sense of balance to begin to bring small and gentle movements back into the body. Maybe hands and feet or head begin this process. And slowly making a smooth transition from stillness to movement, begin to bring that little bit of action from the extremities in towards the center of the body. So arms and legs might begin to move. You might stretch out or coil into a little ball. Find that motion that brings you into balance or keeps you centered. And as you discover and explore these different movements, begin to slowly work your way back to that Sukhasana where we began class. Find that deep sense of stillness, stability, inertia, heaviness in the low body. The dynamism of breath and body circulation and thought in the upper body as we find that expansiveness and the gentle movements of aliveness. And feeling that stability and that movement at the same time is that pure awareness perspective. As we draw the palms together to touch, joining that individual awareness and that wholeness awareness, stillness and motion, rajas and tamas, as we find that union, we come into that sattvic state of yoga, and just pull that into your heart center. Find a little bit of passiveness and heaviness in the head. Maybe we're a little bit more active in pressing the palms together. Again, finding that balance. As we come into that pure awareness, as we begin to find steadiness in the flow of all things, the flow of our mind, the flow of the world, the flow of our states of being, as we anchor ourselves in that pure awareness state of wholeness, that state of yoga, our very life becomes an act of service to one and all. So we close our practice with our prayer of service. Lokha samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be happy, healthy, safe, and free. Namaste.